or deletions. So I'm going to add under 10A, African Nova Scotian support. And I just left that letter. I just received it this morning. So I left that on your spot. Any more additions or deletions? Deputy, did you have something?
I think
Oh, I see it's on there.
Lindsay already put it on the workshop this week, I guess. Thank you. Move we accept the agenda with the addition, Your Worship.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Okay, so presentation. FCM MCIP. Demario is here. Come on up. I'm going to check that microphone, Demario, and you probably have to speak right into it. I think it's on.
Test, test.
No, hang on, Jeff's gonna check, or the chief will check. Okay. All right, has to be right up in there. And then,
Test, test.
Jeff, are you able to make sure that we have that so that we can see that on the camera, or does that matter? Yeah, that's okay, as long as, okay, good. Welcome.
All right, thanks for having me. So this is the FCM MSIP presentation. This is in coordination with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So I'll just go over a quick overview slide. Just want to define a few acronyms with the glossary. Feel free to ask for clarification of any acronym somewhere in the slideshow. And then I want to answer a few key questions. So who's involved in the project, why this MSIP project was created, how the MSIP project will work, the progress to date, and then looking ahead, and then a quick conclusion with some Q&A. So the first acronym is FCM, obviously, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and you have MSIP, which is Municipalities, sorry, that's a typo, Municipalities for Climate Innovation Program, PCP, Partners for Climate Protection, and CCS, Climate Change Staff. Oh, are you Justin? Thanks. ERT percentage, which is Emissions Reduction Target Percentage, and IWG, which is Internal Working Group. So in terms of who's involved, the town of Yarmouth applied and received a Climate Change Staff grant of $124,000, and across Canada there are 69 CCSs, so this is very much a group effort, very collaborative, and FCM is essentially an advocacy group for municipalities that are looking for mechanisms to invest federal dollars, essentially. And in terms of who else is involved, there are approximately 5 nonprofit groups that FCM is partnered with. That will be on the next slide. So we have Community Energy Association, which is in BC. They are the lead group amongst the group of nonprofits, and you have EcoQuest or EcoWest, and you have Quest, which is for the Nova Scotia region, and then you have ACT, and then you have the Ontario Climate Consortium. Now, in terms of the why of the MSIP program, FCM essentially wants to impact climate change through 3 main mechanisms. The first is policy, the second is human resources and governance, and the third is technical capacity. So in terms of policy, FCM wants to see municipal units lead the way with specific actions to reduce carbon emissions as a corporate entity, essentially. They would use things such as bylaws or plan and documents to lead the way. In terms of human resources and governance, FCM wants councils that they want a council that understands the benefits of reducing GHG emissions, and they want staff, so the corporate staff, that are continually monitoring progress on GHG emissions over time. And then third, technical capacity. So FCM wants corporate entities or communities to have tools and procedures that are in place to regularly collect and analyze data and GHG emissions that are reported publicly. So this is just a little flow diagram of how the program will essentially work. It's a very, very short version, compact version. So first, we want to develop an in-house GHG inventory, so that's currently in progress. The template has been developed so far. I've received some training on how to do that, and I'm currently tackling that. And then the next thing we will do is form an internal working group, and so that group will help to endorse or advise on potential GHG projects. They will also help to recommend emissions reduction percentage, and also help to develop a policy to meet that emissions reduction target percentage in the future over whatever time frame is decided, so whether it be 5 years, 10 years. And then from that point on, okay, I guess that was it. And then progress to date, so essentially we need some capital dollars invested into the GHG projects. The first project that was finished was the Mariner Center LED lights conversion. That I've just had rave reviews so far from that. It's been very good, and the difference in the lighting in the Mariner Center is very astounding. So I hope you guys have seen that recently. And then we also have 3 projects that are still in the scoping stage in the engineering department. So that would be the Broadbrook channel cleaning, stone sewer replacement, and the solar power project panels. And then, as I had mentioned previously, I've already started on the GHG inventory and developing an in-house template. And I've also attended 2 events so far to receive training on anything related to climate change and how to develop policy, GHG inventorying, or just how to engage the community. Looking ahead, the project is split up into 4 main milestones, and it ends on February 2021. This project also has extensive and specific reporting requirements that need to be met at each milestone, and then also it is mandatory community engagement and mandatory technical training that needs to be done. But the main takeaway from this program is that this is a capacity building program for the municipality and for the wider community involved. Any questions? Sure.
I do. Thank you.
Thank you.
You having fun?
Yes.
That's question number 1. So under the how, the emissions reduction target, the percentage, is that ours? This is really echoey. Under the how, the
Yes.
emissions reduction target percentage, is that ours?
Yes. So after we've developed the GHG inventory and that internal working group is committed, then we would try to determine what sort of percentage we would commit ourselves to achieve over the
So we can
timeframe.
track it.
Yes. Yes.
I'm a tracker.
Good.
I'm so results oriented that I need to see where we are and where we are. And the second question was the milestones, the looking ahead piece.
Yes.
So do you know what they are, or
Yes.
do they?
That's dictated by the contract. It's very specific. Just they're in 6-month intervals. So at the end of each 6-month bracket, you would have to develop a certain number of reports and submit those.
Oh, okay. All right. Good. Okay. Jim?
Thank you, DeMario. Again, looking ahead, the last slide or second last slide, it indicates that the program ends in 2021.
Yes.
Is that, to me, should be ongoing? And I know that over the past years that I've been involved with the council, that we're doing stuff constantly to reduce our operating costs and look after the climate as best we can. I just wondered, it should be a way that we can pursue this beyond 2021, beyond February 2021. That's only a year and a half to go.
I apologize, but that's more in reference to the funding from FCM. The actual grant, the grant funding will end at that point. Now, in terms of the actual program objectives, it's the intention that whatever committee, Greenhouse Gas Committee, they will continue to do that work. And then in terms of funding from FCM, there are always ways to get funding from FCM to do this type of work. It just depends on how aware you are or what type of mechanisms they have available at the time, but that's a constant, something that's always in motion. No problem.
Good. Any more questions? Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, didn't even see the light. Go ahead, Cliff.
Mario, there's a lot of acronyms in here.
Yes.
There's one you missed, GHG. I assume that's greenhouse gas.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
Maybe you should add that to your list.
Thank you.
I'll get through that part, but I got some other questions. Who's Community Energy Association, Quest, Quest West, ACT, and Ontario Climate Consortium, and what do they have to do with what we're doing?
So, in this context, what I was referring to was that FCM had partnered with various nonprofits.
So this is
across-
who FCM is partnered with.
FCM has partnered with these groups, and Quest has been assigned to the Nova Scotia region. So I'm directly working with Quest.
Are they all NGOs, non-government organizations?
Yes,
Are they all funded by government?
I believe so. I'm not 100% sure.
So it looks like everything here, including the organizations that are on the list, are funded by government. Is there any indication that industry that is somewhat of a polluter in our country is participating in this, besides the the FCM and the Government of Canada and Ontario? Like, who's going to decide to, say, for instance, eliminate drive-through coffee vendors? Who's going to speak to that one? Us?
Oh, sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I can't speak to how those organizations are funded, but FCM is funded through the federal government to deliver this program, and their intention is to create capacity in municipalities to help us to develop policies, to think about greenhouse gas reductions both corporately but also in the community. So I think if I was to guess what their strategy is to have the municipalities, the municipal leaders, more in tune and developing policies to address things like drive-throughs through our land use bylaws. So it's a municipal approach to changing climate awareness and activity.
That's why I'm asking the questions, because it really falls in our lap. I thought about this overnight, that a lot of this, if we're going to do anything about climate change, is going to be in our lap. So in this emissions reduction target percentage and DERT, which is the same thing, are we expected to find a percentage of what we're going to do in reduction of emissions through this project or this process? Or does that somehow correlate to what the feds are doing on their side?
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. That there was a little bit of ambiguity there. So essentially, the GHG inventory, you will take a benchmark year. So 2016, for example, you will
So
come up.
what year is the benchmark?
It'll be 2016 in this
Okay,
case.
thank you.
So benchmark at 2016, and then you will say, okay, let's do maybe 1 or 2 years from now. So you will compare 100 tons of equivalent carbon, and then 2 years from now it might be 90 tons of equivalent carbon, so you dropped 10 tons. And then you're going to say to yourself, okay, if we did that in 2 years, then we can do this percentage in 10 years. And that will just be for our own municipality with a reduction in our own GHG inventory that we will do over time, and we will track it.
So then with this, if all municipalities did it across the country eventually, they could plug that information into the feds who are trying to meet our Kyoto
Yes, there's
emissions goals. Is
a
that-
national inventory report that's produced every year by Canada and submitted to, oh goodness. It's submitted as a result of the Kyoto Protocol, and with that, that report is tracking information on a provincial scale. So something like that, something like what you're talking about is already being done.
Well, thank you, Mario. It starts to make some actual sense now that I've had an answer to some of those questions. Thank you.
Yeah, and to to the counselor's point about all of everybody doing this, because this is not mandatory, correct? We've applied for this and we've gotten this.
Yes, yes.
So it's a test program, okay. Because we're this big. And I love that we always try to take the lead and get it out in front of things, but you can only do so much when you're this big, and then the rest, you know, you're surrounded by, yeah, so good stuff. Any more questions? It is nice to be first,
Just have a
but you
comment.
don't want to be only, right? This is too important to be only. Go ahead, CAO.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that DeMario's, the approach he's taking with the greenhouse gas reduction percentage or the emissions reduction target is, you know, it's a thoughtful process. I know that there was some desire to have us commit to a percentage before we even knew what our production was, and so he's undertaking a process where we'll know what our right. It'll be.
Yeah.
Right. We don't want to set ourselves up to fail, but we do want to be focused. And so he'll have a number for us in terms of what we're producing as of 2016, and you know, to have a thoughtful approach to reduction targets. So I appreciate that, and I think we're on the right track. It's some of the work we were doing. We've evolved to do infrastructure projects in that area, such as the Mariner Center lighting changes and so on. So this will allow us to, I think, look at other opportunities down the road and be more aware of the possibilities. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Okay. Staff report, CAO report. Did you have anything there you want to share? Any questions for the CAO on this?
Make a motion that the report of the CAO be placed on file.
All those in favor?
I
Contrary?
should have said approved and placed on file.
Yeah, we got that. We captured that word. Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Fire department, strategic priorities. Lindsay, can you get his light so I can get back here? Okay. Anything for the chief?
Did everything go
Couple nights ago?
a couple nights ago? John?
With the,
Fire on
Elm
Elm Street. Elma.
things are, I still haven't gone through the full report yet, but it went okay. It was a bit difficult because of where the fire was, but Peter was there, and there was a number of other departments that helped us out, so.
Good.
Go ahead, Jim.
John, I spoke to you earlier about your desire, the department's desire to change to the lockbox system. And you indicate, we had a brief conversation, do you want to just carry on with that? Success, you may have somebody online that you can, other people, other business owners can come and see this lockbox?
Yes, we didn't have much interest in it, the old key program either. But we had one company that did send its information in, so it's interested. We're currently looking to purchase a lockbox itself, so once we get it, we use it as an example, right? And then we can show other companies how it works. It's still, you know, a program that's free for all the companies, all businesses, and you know, building owners if they want to get involved in it. And we're pushing forward with it.
I think it's a good idea, but having owned a pharmacy on the street for a long time, I guess I said, when I first read it, I said, oh my gosh, we're going to have a box outside the John Street entrance, and people are going to see it, you know. But anyway, it's my way of promoting the change, and I want that good example that will be upcoming. Like to see that when it comes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Anything else for the chief? No?
Thank you.
Good stuff, thank you. Operational, Chad's here. Yeah. Anything for Chad? I will say this, and Mike's here as well. We're just, I think Chad is getting a lot of questions about paving and where we are and pieces like that, and do you want to speak to that briefly? Because we're working with Mike to get something out so that the public understands how that works, because it's not that easy.
Right. Well, earlier this spring, we were getting a lot of complaints through various forms, phone calls, receipt, click, fix, about the state of the roads. And generally, how we responded was the paving season started in June. It started for us a little bit late this year. The contractor just started with us earlier this week. So the three or four streets that we've chosen to do some capital paving on, we've elected to do a mill and recap type of repair. So that takes quite a bit of planning and preparation. Our forces are out right now doing some upgrades to infrastructure such as catch basins and water services, excuse me. But also the machine that does the planing is a third party, and they will only mobilize the machine once to the Yarmouth area. And so right now, we're slated to do the work, the milling and the paving, sometime in September. We can't nail down an actual date yet. So I just want to get that message out to the public that, that those more thorough projects won't occur until September, but I really think the results will be worth the wait.
Oh, absolutely.
As far as pothole patching, we're doing some of that with our own resources, and again, our contractor has started earlier this week.
Good. I think it's relatively simple when the public, when they know, it just makes
Yeah.
it that much easier. So Mike is working on that. Thanks, Chad. Go ahead, Jim.
Chad, I had a couple of comments. When we were repairing the flooding on the mall on Stars Road, who's responsible for the installation and the payment of the barricades that we put around, or that someone put around the water, so that I wouldn't be crazy enough to drive through it in my vehicle? Who pays for that?
I can tell you, we did not.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
And so they thought that maybe we should be, because it was our problem. And that's all I was wondering.
Yeah, nobody's asked me that question. I've had some good conversations with Linda DeVue, the mall manager. I think there was some perception from the public that repairing the culvert should have been the mall's responsibility, but in fact, it's town-owned infrastructure. It's infrastructure that is beneath the Stars Road. But the mall essentially has no stormwater infrastructure. Everything runs over land to that culvert inlet. And we did some investigation after the mall property was flooding, and found that the corrugated steel pipe underneath Stars Road had corroded to the point where it was starting to collapse. So,
Yeah. No, I understand. I was just responding to a question.
yeah.
Who, for the parade that we had last week, who puts up the barricades to direct or redirect traffic?
The organizers take care of that. Yeah. I think we may have lent out 5 sets of barricades, but the organizers take care of the actual detour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. I think
Switch events differently. We take care of the traffic
Yeah.
control for the switch event.
Good. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chad.
Go ahead, Cliff.
So I wanted to go back to the paving issue for a minute. Do we when we let the tender out for the paving, I'll back up. There are 2 aspects of the paving. There's the patching, and then there's the reconstruction, which involves planing. Do we segment those when we do the paving contract?
No.
No. That's part of a problem, isn't it? Because we're being forced to wait to
Yeah.
do what should be done for patching, and many of the other streets still need some patching, but we're waiting
Yes.
until the contractor can mobilize for the planing and the redo. And we're stuck with waiting until then and can't get at the patching because of it. Am I right on that?
I think if we were to do 2 separate tenders, one for capital, one for operations, we'd still have the same result. We'd have the one local contractor bidding, so
So we're stuck with who we,
Yeah.
Is there any way we could tender that differently so that the patching could get underway at an earlier date, or are we stuck with the one contractor and that's it?
No, I mean, I can't recall if we had 2 bids this year, but there's a company outside of Yarmouth that bids, but their prices are almost double what.
Yeah, that's
our
what I was
local-
figuring.
yeah.
So if you were to, if you were to try and put a timeline in your contract, that would cost you more money too, wouldn't it? Like
Yeah,
if you were to say, we want it done by the end of May,
Yeah,
that would cost you more money, probably, unless they didn't have any work.
yeah, you can maybe reword the tender.
Because the
and
word
put-
I'm hearing is they got a job up here on the 10, where, and they're tied up with that for quite a period of time.
I mean, we can look at building some
Yeah.
sort of incentives into the tender, but.
Maybe we should think about that in the future, though, just to see, you could, if you priced it 2 ways, you could at least see how much more it would cost you to get at the patching earlier, wouldn't it? Maybe we could look at that.
We could maybe put the tender out a month earlier next year.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Good? Go ahead, Deputy. Birthday boy.
Birthday boy, thank you. Maybe to Jeff and side order to Chad, and myself and Donnie Berry play cards every Tuesday night, and we always get lots of advice on how we're going to pave the streets of Yarmouth. Anything from raise taxes to borrow money to spend and pay it back over so many years to pay 5 kilometers and do 5 and then pay it back. We had a presentation here, Jeff, over within the last year. And I think one of the conversations was, I think it was Spring Hill, borrowed some money and paved 4 or 5 kilometers of street and then paid it back over an amount of time or with a surcharge. Do you remember that conversation? Or that vaguely? What would be the impact, or what would be the scenario that if we said we wanted to pave 5 kilometers of road, your street's one of the worst ones, Your Worship, actually. Say we're going to pay over and above, we're going to borrow money and pay 5 kilometers of road this year. And say it's, Jerry, it's say it's $800,000 kilometer, so $4 million. How long would that take to pay back? And is that something that's way outside of the realm or way out in left field? And that's just a question from some of Donnie Berry's friends that sit on that side, of the table, because my guys are a little more reasonable on my side of the table.
I'm going to help answer that too. Go ahead. Is he answering that? Are you answering? Jerry's sitting over there sweating. Like, oh.
Yeah, there are, I mean, it's, you could spend a lot of money on paving. You could also spend a lot of money on the infrastructure beneath the paving. And and as an example, in the operational services report for this month, I think there were 5 or 6 water breaks that were repaired. And so if you pave those roads and then next thing you know, you're cutting that road, you know, that's not the best scenario, because you're just going back to bumpy, cut up, patched road. So it's complex, and that's why we're looking at the asset management thing, to be able to target those monies towards doing the full job, or if we're recapping or paving a street that we know that the services underneath are going to likely outlast the paving. So
So the asset management plan is important, right? So,
it's very important.
the worst, yeah.
You know, and so the question is, if you had $4 million, would you do an important street with really poor infrastructure underneath, do the full job, or would you do a whole bunch of just the surface and perhaps have to go back and repair the stuff underneath? You know, Charles, in his work with the asset management, we're hoping that we'll be able to look at, maybe there will be opportunities, you know, on some of these streets that people are concerned about, and I'll just use an example. Let's say Forest Street or Chestnut Street. You know, if we look at all the infrastructure there, maybe it is the case that you could pave it and be reasonably certain that the infrastructure beneath is going to outlast that pavement. If that's the case, then it's a candidate. But you have to also look at, you know, what is the look for the word, the level of service for that street. So, you know, your arterial and collector streets would be a higher priority perhaps than your local streets. Right? It's complex, and that's why we have Charles working on it. He's holding his mic, so I'm hoping he's gonna jump in here. So.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, CAO. One thing I would think about is if you're talking about budget, from a capital perspective, you can always fluctuate that budget according to whatever capacity you have in terms of the amount of cash. If you're talking about borrowing the money to do more capacity, then you have to think about ways in which you can invest that money which you've borrowed, which will sustain the pace that you want to go with your capital project. So an example would be if you took that money that you borrowed, instead of you put it towards more paving, you put it towards building a plant that would allow you to keep your own pace with your capital budget for whatever size you want. And so if you borrow the money, you have to understand the pacing that the capital program will follow with that borrowed money and how that's invested. And so the budget can be changed and adjusted, and that will set your pacing, and invested money can support whatever pacing you want with that capital budget in the long term.
Go ahead, Cliff. Or Don,
Okay, who's first? Cliff?
you are.
Okay, so my concern would be if you talk to the public out there, the most concerned is our roads. I think by Chad's suggestion or by looking into it, if we can structure, if weather permits, because that's our biggest issue, if weather permits that we move up the date of resurfacing, at least resurfacing the potholes, whatever it takes. I think when you hit a pothole and it does so much damage to your vehicle, now we're looking at another added expense to the drivers of our road, and all of us around here drive, most drive. But for the people that do drive, the concern out there, or even our public that are looking, they see a great big pothole and they wonder, September, the middle of September, before it's fixed. You see our concern, and our passion is to make sure at least that those are fixed. And then if you got time, or then if we can move on to the bigger structure underneath and all that stuff. But I think we really need to do a big approach on fixing potholes way sooner than September. I just think that that's way too late. That's, if any public or anybody that's even visiting us and they're bringing their vehicle across and they hit a pothole or they hit one of those, and I know that they're all over. The first time I've ever seen it that bad. It just seems like they're springing up, gators. Biggest holes I've ever seen.
It's the weather.
Almost swallow you up. But they need to be fixed. And we need to fix them sooner. That's all I'm saying. Then we can worry about the structure of my group, talking about borrowing money and all that stuff. I think we would be much happier, at least by fixing the potholes. That's all I'm saying. At a sooner time.
Go ahead, Cliff.
So if we want to put this in context for the public and to answer the deputy mayor's question that he gets at Dooley's or wherever they are doing that, the scale of this, when you talk about borrowing money, just figure what we did with Brown Street, Main, and Cliff. Year and a half at it.
$4 million.
And that was damn near $4 million. And we can't do that every day because we got provincial and federal funding under the infrastructure thing. So even to get that done, you've got to line up and get approved under that program to get that kind of cost sharing, but I mean, we had over $1 million into that.
That's right, so,
So Don's point is something, echoes sort of what I was talking about, was trying to find a way to get the patching done earlier in the year. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. And the public needs to know, this is expensive stuff.
yeah, plus that money's not, so, to do a project, and we want to get federal funding for the sewer, stormwater separation, all that, we can't stack that money and get, like, yeah, okay, I know exactly what you mean. Is you can't stack the monies, right? So there's gonna be 100% on the taxpayers instead of getting 33-cent dollars or 66-cent dollars, we're gonna be paying 100% dollars.
And we're already committed to trying to do parade
Yeah.
at some point in the near future, I believe.
And the back end of Water Street, the north end of Water Street.
So, okay,
You can explain that.
So
at the
you
card.
heard all
Don will
that.
Explain that at the card game.
you heard all that?
Yeah, just to clarify though,
Yeah.
the work in September is going to be the capital paving. We're currently patching potholes. Pothole patching is occurring this week.
Yeah. So, yeah, so there's a, I just gotta say some stuff too, but go ahead.
So we have an asphalt recycler that we use for fixing potholes and, you know, some of the worst potholes, I assume, that we're going after with that.
Right.
That solution, that's been on the road for almost 2 months now?
Yeah.
Started that work? I
And
mean,
through the winter, for that matter.
And through the winter as
Yeah.
well. So it isn't running 24/7 or even 8 hours a day,
No.
but we do get it out when we can.
Yeah.
So that, you know, if you have craters, if a crater is emerged somewhere, if the public works guys know about it, they can get to it with that solution, which stops the beating up of the vehicles. The patch paving is for, correct me if I'm wrong, but sections of street that have deteriorated, alligatored or whatever, that
Yep.
need to be replaced. It might not be a pothole, but it may be significantly deteriorated.
Yep.
And then the capital is stretches of road.
Right. Yeah.
So that work is ongoing. So if you're aware of somebody that has found a pothole or you've seen a pothole, you know, see Click Fix. I know you're getting a lot of activity on that. Or a phone call or a text to Chad, just so you're sure they're aware, because they do have some resources to be able to tackle those acute situations right away.
Yeah. So maybe even, we don't want to create more work, but maybe even just a list of what's been tackled, just a list of streets or something, so we can, because it's getting done. So I'll speak to the bigger picture, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I have to say it again. The problem, a lot of the problem, never mind the weather, and this is what happens when it's freeze thaw, we know that. The issue with the money is that we all know we're paying for our roads, but we are also respectfully the service center for this entire end of the province. So it's not just the town taxpayers that are driving on the roads. I would suggest the people that live in town use the roads the least, because the town's so small we can walk to where we're going. It's the traffic from outside that use our streets, and that's okay because we are a service center. But understanding that we pay for all that. The town taxpayers pay for everybody in southwestern Nova Scotia to use our streets. Nobody else chips in on that. And yet, again, I keep saying it, if you cross the street into the municipality, just one street over, the other side of Prospect Street, the province is taking care of that. So when folks say, well, gee, I'd rather drive in the municipality, of course you would, because the province takes care of their roads. And we, as a very small community with, in this area, the lowest household income, the lowest, ability to pay, we are servicing everybody. And so it's just so hard to come up with the funds to keep going. It would be no different from somebody buying a brand new car and you never use it. Your neighbors use it, but when the bills come, you have to pay the bills. It's just wrong. So a little bit later in the agenda, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm going to ask council to support me going on one or two committees federally through FCM. And one of the ones that I've applied for is the infrastructure ones, because that money that comes down through gas tax, it has to change. It was meant for infrastructure. It was meant to give Chad and Charles money to pay for these types of things, and it's going to, it's not always focused on where the infrastructure needs are. It's just doled out on a different basis, and something needs to give there, because you can't pay to keep servicing everyone if everybody isn't chipping in. That's just my opinion, but it's real in every single community. So that's where I stand on it. Were you going to say something, Chad?
No.
Well, that was your light. Go ahead there, Steve.
First of all, I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because obviously if you're out in the public talking to anyone, that's one of the #1 things. I'm just wondering, have we ever reached out to Aberdeen and said, if we got to you earlier, would this be better, or best practices? Just had an open conversation to maybe how we get bumped up on the list, or?
Yeah, we've had that conversation recently, actually, yeah. They're very overwhelmed. Like, they're currently, I'm not defending them, but they're currently doing work that was backlogged for 2 years. So, you know, they do residential paving, they do parking lots, they do other commercial work, they have highway tenders, so, but no, we're communicating that to them right now.
And as far as patching goes, the town itself does that and a contractor?
We do a bit. We have an asphalt recycler that we use throughout the winter months and spring, and we also have the means, like, we can go to Aberdeen's plant and get hot mix asphalt and do some pothole patching with our own resources, you know, when those resources allow. Like, we have other things to do. We have water services to fix and, you know, signs to fix. So, but when we have the resources available, we do our own patching, yeah.
Thank you.
It's no different, not that this matters, because the condition of the roads is a condition of the roads. It's no different in any other town or city. Like,
No, and that's, and we get a lot of comments about the difference between the state of the roads in town and out in the county.
yeah.
The county doesn't have as much underground infrastructure as the town, so,
Yeah.
you know, every town has a patchwork of.
Exactly. And you know what? The other piece is, just by virtue of who we are, our population, I think, triples every weekday. And if you go out to the 103 or the 101, it's lined up. Like, it's just people coming in, so that our population is up to sometimes 20,000 or more on a weekday, everybody driving on the roads. Those 20,000 people are not driving on the rural roads. They're just not getting worn out the way ours are. So it's, right, yeah, that's exactly what we need to do. So yeah, it's a really hard program. I'm sorry, Jeff, I didn't see your light. Go ahead.
Okay. No, I was just going to remind you, if you haven't noticed in your emails, FCM, I think it was yesterday, maybe in the day before, sent out a pre-election position. This year, the federal government doubled the gas tax allocation, which means that instead of receiving something like $600,000 in gas tax, we received double that for 1 year only. FCM's position is they would like to see that level of gas tax made permanent, and so that's their push for the upcoming federal election. And just reminding you of that, because that's the kind of money. Whereas Councillor Hood said, you know, we enter the lottery and put applications in to do projects like Parade Street and Glebe Street, and I call it a lottery because there's no guarantee you're going to win. There's no guarantee your application will be funded. Whereas the gas tax is reliable, dependable level of funding that you can plan ahead for.
Yeah.
So the doubling of that transfer would be extraordinary. But on top of that, Your Worship, if that does come to pass, or if that were to come to pass, and if the federal government and the provincial government were working with municipalities, perhaps a little more strategically, to address the issue that you raise, which is the infrastructure in our urban centers, there's a possibility that the allocation could actually be greater than just simply a doubling without taking money out of the pockets of rural municipalities.
Yeah. You're right, it just needs to be strategic, because it's going to places that don't need it. All right, any more questions for Chad? We good?
He's not leaving.
Thanks for everything, because I know it's crazy time of year.
You're not leaving, right? No. I got one for you later.
Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry, one more thing before Chad goes too far, and that is, I know you've probably all taken a look at the transit ridership numbers, and, you know, we're at over 11,000 riders this year, and well on pace to have the best year ever. Every month so far this year, we've hit an all-time high with ridership, so I think part of that is people getting used to it, and part of it is the great drivers we have, and part of it is the extra bus, so the dependability of the accessible ride. So we should be well over 20,000 this year.
It's awesome. Okay, planning, the report's in front of us for planning. Any questions on that? Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you very much for the planning department. Even I'm amazed at the detail of the report, and I'm up there regularly. But I did have a question. It was I see where Tracy designed a map for you to find out how many of the town's population are within 1 kilometer of a bus stop. Have you been able to look at that, or have you seen the map yet?
Yeah, we did that a while ago with mappings, just to make sure that the route does reflect the population.
What?
Sorry, that was done a while ago now with Natalie's input, and that was more to make sure the route was kind of representative or within walking distance for users.
To pick up the bus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I just noticed it, and I was just. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks very much.
We good? Oh, go ahead, Cliff.
So my question on that one would be, what's the point of the information? How many of those 11,000 riders on the bus can walk a kilometer to get to the bus?
Well, kilometers.
Isn't it, no,
too big.
what's the information? I looked at that. What the hell we put that together for? What the heck did we put that together for? 1 kilometer to the bus. Well, I can't walk a damn kilometer, for God's sake. Jim can. Just a little question. But here's the one I really have on the report.
Come on up, Natalie.
So, meeting with CAO in regard to truck routes. What's going on with truck routes?
Okay, so first of all, do you want to answer the kilometer question?
So one of the uses of that information is where in the bus route the people are getting on and where are they going to. So when we look at that, and actually Caroline, that was one of the data sets that we used to determine the route. So 80% of the users are coming from the south side of our community, and generally they're hitting the hospital and the mall, or at the college, or other parts of Stars Road. So those people don't have their own vehicle. In most cases, they have some physical challenges. And I think the other part is that people are recognizing that they can contribute to low carbon emissions by not using vehicles. So one example is the Ocean Breeze Estates. When we established bus stop number 1 at Sarah Corning Way, within 12 months, a significant percentage of those people got rid of their vehicles. So this is why it's so important for us to work with developers as we start to see infilling or sprawling, because they're looking at the basic essentials that the town is offering as a plus for their residents, for their renters. So all of those things contribute to when we look at that analysis, is like, are we serving the right community? And how does that translate in other positive impacts or negative impacts? So that was the reason why we did that analysis.
Oh, that's okay, Dawn. Okay, hang on one second. Go ahead, Dawn, and then Cliff.
I was just going to say, thank you, Natalie. I think that was a well-expressed information. I think that was something that we thought about or we knew about at the south end of Yarmouth. I'm glad to find out that more people sold their car and are using the facility. So we're cutting down on our gas, which is gas emissions, which is one of our most important goals of either the province of Nova Scotia or for the future of our children. So that was very, very
Yeah, when
good
you look
information.
at ticket sales and where they're coming from, the highest highest location selling tickets is the red and white in our south side. That's the highest ticket sale generator right there.
It's awesome. Cliff, you had another question? Go ahead.
Don pretty much touched on it, but, see, I always figured that the reason that was subsidized by government when we did establish the transit service was to reduce. It was to encourage people to stop using their vehicles and use public transit. But my observation was that, for the most part, the people using the transit service up till this point have been people who probably don't even have a car, let alone one that they can use less. And I don't know if we ever tried to capture that information. It's good, it's very positive to hear it and realize that out there that people we'd actually seen a result in that way. So if that's what it's about, but we need to know, does anyone ever monitor us when they put the program out? Here's government money, we want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and we want to do it by establishing public transit. Does anyone ever follow up to see whether we actually did reduce GHGs by doing it? I expect not.
I know that the Western Wren's Regional Energy Project in the future will get to that level of detail because you can capture some of that,
So isn't this something that DeMario
but not in
could-
the work that we've done.
Isn't this something that would be part of DeMario's work that he talked about earlier?
In the future, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
It would be, wouldn't it?
Yes. Yeah, you look at your own fleet, and then you look at taxis, then you look at others. I just want to add one thing that's really important about the transit system, and kudos to council and the CEO and our finance director for allowing us to have it. It's one of the most important investment attraction tools that we have. I know it's only one way, I know it's only 45 minutes, I know it's only one direction, but it is at least that we have it. And it's one of the things that allows me and others in the area of business development to talk to potential larger opportunities to say, this is what the town's invested, this will allow your employees to think about how to manage their money, and it's part of the ethos of the town that we want a clean environment and high quality of life. So it's not just for those who can't afford a card, but it's for those that choose not to have a car, and this is the way that urban living is moving to. It's not an option anymore, this is what people want. So just food for thought in the future, the need will grow.
Go ahead, Steve. Whoops.
A change of route, or maybe if there was a place, say, on Myrtle Street where seniors would like to have a pickup and there currently isn't one, is there a way that maybe those citizens or someone could bring that up to maybe take a peek at that? Or I know there are some concerned citizens there that the bus doesn't come down their way, and there's a 12-unit senior citizens there, and I've just had some questions from people wondering if they could access that. The bus currently just goes up and around them, so.
It's the number one thing is all citizens can provide input to the quality of the service and the route today. They can call into our public works or they can call into the front desk. We take that information and we log it in. So number one is we log in all input from the public. So that's number one. Number two is there is a transit committee that was established prior to the launch. That had council representation on staff, and we would do a review of the service. We haven't had one for a while, so I would leave it up to council's direction, the CEO, to do a review of that. But one of the things is when we do have large residential developers, and thinking more also commercial, is that's something that they actively seek from us as to what can we do? Is it within a reasonable walking distance to the stop? So those things are considered, and of course it has to be reviewed with Public Works, but it's not something that we've done in a CAO. I think in the last 6 months, we haven't had a formal review.
Thank you.
My
Phil
turn.
first.
Yeah, it may be Natalie and Demario in reference to Councillor Hood's point. Do you think, Demario, that's something that you could kind of tackle, that greenhouse saving part? Could that be incorporated? I know that's a federal thing that you're doing, the 2021 drop dead, that the funding stops, but I think that's an important aspect of what it saves in greenhouse gases, what it saves, you know, some, like, there's probably, like you said, there's a few people that either stopped using their car or got rid of their car or went from a two-car family to a one-car family, but I think that's an important tool, and anytime we apply for any funding for any climate change projects is the transit system. I think that I don't know if there's a metrics or a matrix for that or a report card, but I think that's an important part, what Councillor Hood brought up.
That information would be reported in the GHG inventory report. It would take into account some of that stuff. And with the reporting that I will be delivering with each milestone, as that information comes in, I'll definitely document that for our own internal review and for FCM's knowledge as well. And we're definitely encouraged in the reporting to mention the fact that a program such as this nature or that nature would be beneficial to us in the future, and they would consider that.
Wade, you're good.
First off, pardon my ignorance, but there's a transit committee? I don't ever remember being asked to serve on one.
No, because it was the previous term.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why.
I think I just need to say this, and it's with all due respect, but a lot of, you were talking before about if anybody has complaints or a wish to, see things changed, that they should, talk about it or go to. There's a process. Those are being ignored. Sorry, folks. They are. I mean, we had this fight, you and I, not long ago when it came to 30 Ellis, which I'm still a little cranky about, to be honest with you, with that particular one. I think the transit needs to be relooked at when it comes to route. I really do. I think that we need to serve the people who need to be served, and I'm not sure we're doing the 100% that we need to do. I think we're doing a good job. I don't think we're doing a great job.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, before you turn off your light. No, we're not a taxi, and two things. I wasn't going to say that. but I will say that. We aren't a taxi, and we are trying to do it within a certain amount of distance from everybody. You don't want the transit to be 2 hours long, and then we start adding, and then you end up with the folks that have 2 or 3 people in their home, and they want that to come down there. So it's like anything else. Be careful what you wish for, because it'll be 2 hours long, and it does turn into a taxi. So, however, What I was going to say is, why don't you make a motion here so it's official for council to sit down and review that, and review that? Right? So your light's on.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, well, Don wants to. I haven't made the damn motion yet. I'd like to make a motion that we perhaps reestablish the committee, or is the committee officially established? But just that we review the route of the transit to make sure it's working at peak efficiency.
Okay, so I understand.
Transit Review Committee, thank you.
Yeah, so you're asking to reestablish that? Yeah, because it was, I just asked Jeff, it was let go after we had after we had it up and running?
Right.
Okay, so to reestablish that committee. Second, all those, any discussion? Go ahead, Don.
On the discussion, I would like them to at least review the spots that they're stopping at right now and look into how many spots that they're stopping at and they're not getting any passengers.
Yeah.
Like to have a stop at a spot just for the sake of stopping and having a break for whatever
Yeah.
they stop for, a minute or 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Let's at least fill out a chart or fill out something to give us some indications if there's any dead spots, meaning that I don't use it. I'm just stopping there for the sake of doing business. So on that question, I would like to at least get somebody to do an investigation on all the spots that are being used. Yeah. We found out that South is being used by the red and white, so we know that that's a high priority. What other is a high priority?
Yeah, and the other piece to that, so we'll sit down and discuss that. And the other piece to that is, let's not forget that it's right on the map where you can just wave down the bus, right? So there's a lot of space within the town, except for, I want to say high traffic, so Stars Road, you're not going to wave down the bus on Stars Road, but there are a number of, and where? And through this downtown, because there's enough spots here. So, so we'll get that set up, and maybe it's just council sitting down and, you know, with whatever. Okay, so any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Thanks, folks. Who was doing transit? Yeah, okay, good. Any more questions with regard to planning? Asset management and infrastructure.
I was originally going to ask a question about truck routes, but I'll defer that
Oh,
to...
you can ask it now if you
No,
want.
I'm going to ask...
You good?
I can talk to the CAO, but...
Okay, all right. Asset management infrastructure renewal report. So that's Charles.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I didn't attach a report. I just didn't meet the deadline there, the cutoff there, but we've been pretty busy. I just want to give you guys an update because we had some discussion in the last committee of the whole around the state of the fire hall in that project. So we've been pouring some effort downstairs into that project. John, the fire chief, has been helping me out, so he's going to take care of a few things to keep us going. And then so we'll hopefully have people working in there in the next 2 weeks, completing some of those deficiencies, moving forward towards getting occupancy in the second floor. And I know that there had been some discussion as to timelines. However, the difficulty with giving a timeline is just simply that we don't have a master list of all the deficiencies for the occupancy. And so we have to just create a short hit list, do as many of those we can, get the inspectors to come back in, see if they feel like that meets the code, and then go from there. So in terms of timeline, we're thinking, we had said that we're hoping that the works will be done by the end of September. I think that's realistic if things can proceed and if the deficiencies lists are going to stay static. If they are dynamic and they start changing, then it definitely will affect the timeline. So yeah, but we're just chipping away at it one deficiency at a time right now.
Good. Any questions there? Finance.
Apologies for not having a first quarter report for you. My plan was to have one for you
Right.
this month for the first 3 months. Been unexpectedly out of the office a little bit more than planned. but we'll get that for you. I did have a chance to go through our statements for the first 3 months to review them myself. Revenue side, we're following budget pretty closely. On the expense side, there seems to be a lot of timing differences, and I haven't had a chance to talk to the other directors to see if that's the case, or if some of the bigger projects are just deferred or not done. I've identified a couple of things that already have been deferred to another year. Something like, the Saltscapes thing was canceled, and we had a little bit of money budget for that. So I'm pretty confident that we're following budget fairly well for the first three or 4 months. But again, I want to actually have the financial report from our system for you, but there's some things to move around for the timing, or a report on the timing, and I'll get those done and get that out to you. The other thing that's been kind of hampering getting that out was just dealing with the audit. So you may have noticed our auditors are actually in our office this week dealing with our year end. The statement that we've presented to the auditors is basically a zero-sum statement, meaning that we're right around a break even, like within hundreds of dollars on a $17.5 million budget. So there will be some adjusting entries done, and I'm hoping that we'll fall on the positive side instead of the negative side, but we're close. The one thing the one caveat I'll say is that is before the entry done for any kind of pension plan adjustment, but auditors and the province look at that as a separate issue anyway. So we'll be right around very close to a break even for the past year, fiscal 19. Other than that, it's kind of business as usual, dealing with some HST audit issues still outstanding. That's been going on for a year and a half. And also dealing with some Revenue Canada reports and things that they've kind of sprung on us in the last couple of months. So we're busy, we're a little bit behind, but Joelle has, again, I think I may have mentioned it last month's meeting that Joelle was coming back. So Joelle is back. She's working 3 days a week up until late in August, which she'll be back to 5 days a week. So that's given us a little extra help, and Lindsay a little bit of time as well to catch up on some stuff.
Good stuff. Any questions for Jerry? Good? Okay. Recreation. Frank's report's here, and Frank is here as well. You good? Okay. Economic development, Natalie.
Thank you, Your Worship. If anyone has any questions related to my report, be happy to answer.
Yeah, where are we going with the facade program? Are we looking at different, I forget where we are. I mean, I'm reading this, but.
So you approved the budget, but council has not approved or at least it hasn't been communicated, the extension of the program to the entrances from Water Street and Parade Pleasant.
So you need us to do that?
Yes, we can't approach a business until we know.
Okay. So, all right, so tell us again where we are. What's the geography now, and then what's the question for the extension?
So the geography now is from Vancouver to Argyle on Main, and then from Willow to Water, which we consider our central business district. That is the existing footprint of the program.
Okay, and you want to go where?
We would like your permission to approach businesses from on Pleasant from Stars Road to Forest, and then at the I guess it would be where the Bobby's Lobster.
Houston Street, maybe?
Yeah, all the way to
Where's that?
Vancouver and Water.
Myra is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you want to include
pleasant water on those.
Yeah, just on those streets. So when you come in from, like where you've got the laundromat, you've got the old Domtex,
Oh, gotcha.
Warp Tech, that area.
No,
The challenge will be, so we really, I mean, that's what we got this feedback from Communities in Bloom judges. So I guess one of the things that I've been unsure about is it that we need to soften up from the road to the building, because there isn't sidewalks in some areas. And if there was a softening up with some softscaping, whatever, then, does the business owner see themselves in that role if the road and the building are kind of like almost abutting? Or is that something that the town would see that's a public works project? And if it is, then that has to be reviewed differently because it's recurring costs for maintenance. So there's some where it makes sense, where there's a business, it's a facade, you go through the same process, and others where there were inquiries along where we've got the north side on Water Street and some of the south side. I think it needs a little bit more thought.
Okay, Cliff?
So one time we did muse, or there was some talk about whether or not, first of all, this is a great program. It has been. But as with all programs of this sort at any level of government, it's wise to consider and look at sunset clauses in these things. Like, or does it all of a sudden become something that's going to be in our budget forever and preclude us from being able to do pave streets and things like that we need to do? And once we've taken steps to fix up an area of the town, as we have now, isn't there a need for us to look at it more objectively and say, well, we've done what we've done. We've made a commitment to the downtown of Yarmouth and to other parts of it. We extended it once, I think. What'll be the next step? Are we going to be doing strip malls and stuff like that? Or are we going to say, we've done what we set out to do, we've met our objectives, we've revitalized the downtown core and some other areas, and maybe it's time to shut the program down and move on to other things? It's something we need to discuss. I'm not suggesting that I even have a position on it right now. I just think we need to discuss it.
Okay. I'd keep it going forever if it were me, until everything's covered. But that's just because it's made such a big, I'd like to fix streets too, but you know what? With businesses moving in because of the facade program, I think the amount of taxes and everything else that happens allows us to do more. It just balances. Go ahead, Don.
I think that looking at the program the way it is, I think we've done a great job of our Main Street and moving towards all areas through Main. I think it is important if we want to promote the boat and we want to promote that Water Street. I think we really need to do a good job at cleaning up the fronts of those. I think that, and then we can say we've done a great job, and because those are the two main areas that I see as a major focus. So I would say that I think Natalie's on the right route of trying to get us to promote from I see it from Vancouver, where there's where the person has the business, still the food business there, the restaurant that we went to when we were kids, all the way down to where Mern Street is, whatever that side street or where that fishing plant is, but and also make it walkable so that it's almost connectable. So if I'm a tourist here walking, I can walk at least that water route, see some beautiful housing and development, and also walk that route, because there's an extension that goes all the way down to Bunkers Island where I see tons of people walking. I just like to see the whole thing as a walking tour like thing that we can promote. And I think once their buildings are fixed up or made or supported by the town to fix those buildings up, I think it would be a great asset for us. At this particular time, and then we can start looking at maybe we've done all we can for our downtown core, as in making it look presentable and exciting for people to come here. That's my opinion.
I think the waterfront development or waterfront's looking at part of what he's talking about, right, to connect. And then the facade piece adds to it, right? So each, yeah, I gotcha. Or Wade first?
I think what Councillor Barry's talking about is very, very true. And as you said, like, a lot of that is under the auspices of what we're doing in planning right now. Myself and Councillor McLeod are on the planning committee, and we're talking about waterfront redevelopment. We had a consultation done. Man, it's been, time flies, it's been a year and a half or more now, hasn't it? And we are working on some of that. But I do believe in my heart that the facade program isn't done. Not yet, not by a long shot. And I agree. We need, at the very least, we need to concentrate on Water Street, and there's still some more work to be done on Main Street as well. But, you know, what you guys are doing should be lauded and applauded, because it's really quality stuff, and you can see it. And it did bring back revitalization, but we're not there yet. We're still on her.
I think one of the things, if I just quickly mention, so for every $1 the town invests, there is $2 to $5 that the business owner's investing.
Huge.
When we compare other municipalities and their programs, not that I'm saying that council should consider this, it's like $15,000 to $20,000 per civic addresses that other communities. So I think that's when you think about that economic impact, the 1 to 2, the 1 to 5, that's pretty significant, I would say.
I just gotta hit the lights in
Maybe-
the order. Don't turn it off or you could lose your space.
Your worship, I'll make a motion, we accept the staff recommendation for the extension of the district.
Okay, I got a seconder? Okay, discussion, if you had that. Yeah, you can't,
So what I heard, Natalie, maybe I'm wrong, you're extending it out to Pleasant Street.
I'm sorry, I can't hear
Extending the
you.
boundary east out to Pleasant. Or did I get that wrong?
Pleasant Street and Stars Road.
Yeah. All the way down Pleasant, out to Star Road, and Pleasant right down to Argyle?
If there's a commercial business there, yes, which there aren't too many at Pleasant and Argyle.
Well, I hear Don talking and Wade talking about Water Street, and I support that. But I don't see why we'd be going out to Pleasant. I just don't, I'm troubled by that. That's why I raised the question when I started mentioning strip malls and things like that.
Pleasant Street include Pleasant Supplies
Yes,
and the road along there, Cliff, towards Forest Street. Does it go beyond Forest?
I'm sorry?
Does it go beyond Forest Street?
That wasn't identified, no. So those are pretty, I guess one of the things, and again, this was just some input that we got from the Communities in Bloom's judges. And they're kind of that, they're not a primary artery, but there is a lot of traffic, tourist traffic, that comes off of Parade and Pleasant. So when they don't want to come all the way down Stars, they're taking that detour on Pleasant, down Parade, or down Parade from Haley, I guess, all the way down. So, you know, typically when we started this program, it really took us 2 years to get that acceleration. The first 12 months, we got like 2 applications because, again, it's that whole buying in. And I'm thinking with the commercial, it's not going to be any easier because their buildings will probably be more significant. So that was the recommendation. If council so wishes, minimize the concentration. Again, it was only 75,000 of which 10,000 we keep for insurance, registry joint stock renderings. So it's $65,000 that we have to work with. And so it's not a large amount of money to kind of invest. That's why I'm saying there are some ones that we will target and see whether they're interested. And sometimes that whole relationship and getting people to think that, yeah, that's something I want to do, maybe this will be the impetus, might take 12 months. So sometimes it's not that quick hit that it looks like a quick hit, but I've been working on them for 2 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's why in year 4 you can see the results of some of that.
I know that Pleasant Supplies attempted or discussed an application with the committee, and obviously not in the district. They weren't eligible. All I want to do, and I'm supportive of the project, the facade committee activity, 125%. I just want to make sure of the district so that I understand, so that when I get a question about a certain location, I'll know the boundary. Do we know, I mean, I know where we are, but there's a little bit of doubt.
Jeff said he can bring that up. I said don't bother because we basically know, but if you want him to bring it up on the screen, we can do that.
I think I sent out a map to everybody,
Yes.
to council.
Yeah.
And we normally identify it by civic address too, so Tracy helps me with identifying that.
Go ahead, Cliff.
So, Your Worship, my concern is this. My concern is that the committee is receiving applications from individual business owners, and it is because of that application that we're extending the area in general. And I don't think we should be extending the area in a holus-bolus way like that because there's 1 or 2 applications. I mentioned strip malls. When is this going to stop? I mean, there is a limit to how much and where we should be doing this. And I'll leave it at that. There's a motion on the floor unless somebody wants to amend it. I do not think we should be going out to Pleasant Street because one business person operating a different kind of business altogether that operates in our core has made an application. It's as simple as that.
Is that what happened? Or
No,
that's not what happened at all?
We didn't. We
No.
get inquiries, but we've gotten no applications.
So I would, not for the sake of argument, but just what you're saying, I think, like, what do strip malls look like? They don't look great, but imagine, so for example, the Amanda Evelyn building, right? I mean, we didn't do that, they did that, because we don't go out there. But the difference in that and some of the other, what we call the strip mall buildings, is it just flips everything around. Like, it creates another place that's appealing to go, right? It's night and day. So I would, I'd take those strip malls on, that's just me. Because what it is and what it can be, and as you said, like $65,000 is nothing compared to what we've just done there. And we could do in other places, but it's a little at a time. It's a little at a time. So there is a motion on the floor. We don't know anybody on Pleasant Street will take us up on it, but it'd be nice if they would, because it could look better. Okay, questions called. All those in favor? Aye. I heard you. Thank you. It is a good discussion. We just need to get it all on the table because it helps us, understand what we have, where we're going. So thank you for that, Natalie. So you're good to go. That was, well, we got to go through council, but.
I got a question though.
Yeah.
Maybe for Natalie or maybe Jeff. Is Councilor Hood brought up a really good point. Is Main Street looks really, really, really good. They've done some fantastic work, but I go by Mr. Barrow's old office and I see the plywood on the window. Is there a timeline to get that replaced, repaired, fixed?
Yeah, there is. Somebody told me that the other day. The glass is ordered.
Glass has been ordered. Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, we good? Thanks, Natalie. All right, Armenia Sister City Initiative. Who speaks to that? Natalie, can you do that Sister City piece? The Armenian, I'm not sure where, it's on here. I'm trying to figure out what the ask is, even though I've read it a couple times.
Sorry, I just gotta get my brain into that file folder.
I think they want to have a discussion with you, your worship, to discuss future opportunities, it looks like.
Yeah, that, the whole the Armenian piece. Do you
So
want
the,
this?
so the first, well, I guess the letter, Mayor, if you'd. So the ambassador is going to be traveling to Armenia, the ambassador of Armenia, is that correct, Mayor? Your
Yes,
worship?
yes.
And requested from the town just a package with relation to our community profile and some other information that she could take along. But basically, it would be then to present to those communities and identify which ones could be a sister city to the town. And then there will be further discussion between both parties, council to council, of what that means. I have done some investigation with some other communities in Canada who have been engaged with international sister cities. There's I apologize to forget the name of the community in British Columbia, where they've actually engaged in 5 different sister cities, one in California, one in South America, one in China, and 2 in Europe. And a lot of it, it's not necessarily population scaled, but interest scale. So they did it for tourism and other types of trade missions. So I would presume that that would be kind of the scope that they're looking at here.
Okay. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, and I think, your worship, it says it right, the ambassador designate expressly requested a private meeting with you and town officials during their trip to Yarmouth to further discuss the sister city initiative. So I think it's just
Yeah, we can leave
a
it
start, a
until
starting
yeah.
point. And I was watching TV a couple times over the last 2 weeks, and Councillor Hood's been here long enough that he remembers, I think we did sister citied up or sister communityed up with Yarmouth, Maine and Yarmouth, England, and I was watching TV. It's kind of neat. CNN head Joe Lockhart, he used to be the press secretary for Clinton, looks like he lives in Yarmouth, Maine, or summers in Yarmouth, Maine. So when you speak, is there 9 Yarmouths? Can I ask you one question you might not know the answer to? Is, what about when you go to Weymouth, the old Yarmouth Road? Is that a? Okay, okay. So with that, your worship, with the Armenian one, I think you're gonna be talking with those people when they come, so.
There's nothing we have to do officially here. Had to pull over. Go ahead, Jim.
I just was, I was just stepped out for a second, but the 3rd paragraph from the end, if the town could prepare a comprehensive package of information about Yarmouth. So,
We've done that.
So you've done that.
Yeah, so we've
Okay.
compiled, I updated our community profile, it's about 98 pages, with all of our information. The Western Rand, why invest in Western Nova Scotia. The mayor and Mike have put together a welcoming letter, and we're also supplying the On the Edge video and some Yasta videos so they can see some quality of life. So that's all been digitally packaged, it's being sent off, and also print. So she will be fully prepared to share that. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I was speaking to our communications person, Mike, that each of you will get that on it's quite a large file, on a USB drive, and at any time you want to, if you're visiting with anyone, you can say, here's my profile, do you want to upload it?
Awesome.
So it's available on the website as well, but I think sometimes it's nicer that you have it at hand. You're welcome.
Okay, anything else? We're good? Collins Street parking lot, deputy.
Thank you, Your Worship. As you know, we purchased a property on Collins Street, the old Roach property, and tore that down, and there's still a gravel lot there, and I noticed it's almost been over the last 30 or 40 years that we've had the property kind of piecemeal together. We have the two yellow buildings in the middle. Some of the concrete barriers are kind of a little disheveled from parking around. Then you'll park in the gravel part, and cars will be parked that way. Then some will be angled that way. Is there a plan, Jeff or Chad, that we can do a comprehensive rehash of that area? I know in the acoustics plan they talked about the Brown Street parking lot and redoing that as a community space. I think the Art Center is far enough off the radar now, it probably doesn't look like it'll ever be on that section. I know, Your Worship, you have some other ideas, but Jeff, what about a complete revamping of that parking lot from top to bottom? I don't know if we need the buildings in there anymore. Next to the roads, the other thing you hear about, and I think it's people just don't realize that we do have a lot of parking downtown, but I'd like to see the parking lot well organized and maybe revamped. And you could use it. I know a few years ago when they had the Multicultural Festival, Mr. Messenger went in there and put some electrical upgrades in there, so maybe you could use it as a community space. I know Councillor Cleveland, when we were at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, maybe not this one, but 2 years ago with the sound stage, the portable stage. I know we tried to do the same thing down on Water Street, and it works quite well. But sometimes even that a couple 100 yards or 300 yards makes a big difference with weather. And fog being up there, up above, so an outdoor concert, you could have more chairs in there. I'm just wondering, Jeff, what the process is to look at that.
Go ahead.
I would suggest a motion to request staff to develop a concept for redevelopment of Collins Street parking lot. And you've just went on the record with some of your ideas, so that will be, if a motion were made and passed, then that will be part of what staff would look for in terms of a concept.
I'll make the motion. I'll make that motion. Your Worship.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
And that's ordinarily, yeah, maybe, and I know Mr. Malta's done a nice job in behind with the back facade on his building. It would be nice to see it maybe stretch a little bit farther down the road too. But,
Yeah. Yep.
there's no question to call, Your Worship.
All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Golf course request.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was at a meeting at the golf course. It was chaired by Richard Hurlbert, and there's been some talk over the last several years about doing some course improvements with cart paths. And you notice with the weather this year has been absolutely a deluge of rain. They're coming up with a comprehensive project, and you can see some of the funding on the back page of the papers that you were presented. It looks like it's going to be about a $170,000 project, and they were requesting $20,000 over a 2-year period. And how are they going to do it? They're going to do the back 9 first, which would cover about 40% of the cost. So they're going to do at least 9 holes, and you'll be able to get to play. At least you'll be able to get people on the golf course that are mobility challenged or have a hard time getting around. And 60% of the cost is going to be on the front 9, which is a lot longer than the back 9. So they have they're going to another municipality. They've already contacted several businesses. They're in contact with Cultural Recreation Heritage, also in contact with our federal representative of both funding. So they're tapping all the avenues, plus the golf course itself is putting in excess of $30,000 towards the project. So I talked with our Chief Financial Officer about the possibility of $20,000 spread over 2 years. So, Your Worship, I'd like to make a motion that the town of Yarmouth contribute $20,000 spread over 2 years for this project. Second. And maybe if I can speak to it, I know some guys on the other side of the table don't golf. I know Jim spent some time on Forbes Street, but Steve Barry is one of the main organizers for the J Strong. That's a key component to their largest fundraiser. So they had to cancel, Steve, this year the tournament and move it back to August the 15th because they could not get golf carts on the golf course, right? So if that thing happens again, if it happened in August again, that could be $30,000 to $40,000 out of the J Strong coffer. So they use it for hospital fundraisers, adult with disabilities. Like I said, the J Strong SPCA's used it. So I think we calculated in excess of $50,000 a year is generated through the golf course for nonprofit and other organizations in our community. And I think it's just an important piece of our tourism infrastructure when we're trying to recruit health professionals and other professionals to our community. And there's a new member down there. One of the reasons he came was because of his accessibility to the golf course. So he purchased a house right here on Grand Street, and that was one of the main reasons. Another gentleman, the same thing in Chabot. So I think it's a good investment in our community, and I think it's something we should contribute to. And Mr. Varon, you have an idea if we accept this motion where we can access the money from?
Don't say the mayor's. It's already spent that.
No, as I've mentioned earlier, I went through our first quarter, and I've noticed a few things that won't be done this year. So, I mean, if we're looking for $10,000 out of the current year budget, I think we could figure that out.
Yeah, I'll tell you what worries me, because I already had this conversation and you addressed it.
I think
We had the conversation twice, probably have it 3 times. As long as others are being asked, because it's another example of servicing an entire area by ourselves. When your residents use it, you should be putting money in. So I'm 100% in favor of this. Everything you said is absolutely true. Not just for locals, but for people coming from away, trying to draw for Natalie to draw people here. It's just a really important piece of infrastructure. But again, just because it's within our limits doesn't mean we should be the only one carrying that. Okay, Jim, you're on, and then Cliff.
So you've mentioned the two concerns that I have. Jerry earlier indicated that we're going to be very close to a break-even budget for their year ending March 31st, 2018. And I'm prepared to support the motion, but I don't want to make it conditional upon our sister municipalities supporting, but darn close to, because they need to support, because there will be more people living in our sister municipality golfing than in the town of Yarmouth golfing on that course. And I just feel strongly that that our sister municipalities should support equally to what we're doing. And if it's a surprise to them, they can find it just like we're attempting to find it, or like Jerry's attempted to find it. So on that basis, I'll support the motion, but I feel strongly that our sister municipalities should support us.
Thank you. Can you turn your light out, please? Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Wood.
I'd qualify what Jim has to say in terms of Argyle, because they have a golf course in their area, and I think, you know, I would encourage them to think about this, but if they didn't, I wouldn't criticize them.
Yeah, they've got a really great golf course there. Yeah.
I have a couple questions. One, Philip, do you know if they tendered it appears to be a project cost. Did they tender and ask around different suppliers?
They did, I think, Your Worship.
Here, why don't you come take my seat, because I got to step out for a second.
Okay.
Don't spend anything you're not allowed to spend.
No. They, Counselor, they went to 2 or 3 vendors and did the due process.
Local contractors?
Local contractors, all local, yes.
That's the first question I had. The other one is, Council, there's a bigger picture that ties into this before we vote. You know, the Mariner Center project, as it was originally pitched, did include curling club, and I think that's off the table, but that doesn't mean that there isn't another ask that's necessary to be addressed at the golf and curling club, and that's in relation to the curling side of it, where there's still outstanding infrastructure needs down there. So we need to keep all of these things in mind, I think, when we, you know, we're kind of piecemealing this thing. I'm going to be supporting this motion, but I don't want to forget the fact that there's likely a more significant ask at some point in terms of perhaps giving that whole facility a midlife refit and extending its life for another 25 or 30 years. I'm talking about the facility itself, you know, the physical facility. So I'll be supporting the motion, but I think we need to be looking into that bigger picture in a more serious way in the future.
You're 1,000% right, Counselor, and you could see it also, even if everything fell perfectly for the Mariner Center project, you can see the same need for the YMCA on Main Street. So everything fell perfectly. You're still going to be 4 years away, and there's still some infrastructure deficit down there that has to be addressed before you would go out to a new facility.
So thank you. I will say this, that about, what was it, 3 weeks ago, I was in city and I went to, so I'm a member of the Dalplex. They didn't throw away the old Dalplex. It's still there. I used it the other day along with the new park. I went over to the Sportsplex, it's now called the Joe
Zatzman Center, yep.
They did not throw away what they had. They completely redesigned it, repurposed it, and incorporated the parts that were useful into it. And they stayed on the same site in both places. I just say that because you just mentioned the why.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councilor Barry.
I will be supporting this motion, but I'm selfishly, I would say that as I got older, from refereeing sports and playing sports, I found myself that I'm probably a wobbler now. I would say that I do the least amount of walking that I can consider. By this time last year, I probably would have played with the weather we had. I bet you, I'm guessing 50, 60 rounds. I would play from morning till night. This year, because of the carts not allowed and me not even being able to go up and down hills, I probably have only played 12 rounds, max. So I'm saying that just on I would say I'm probably physically handicapped with my knees and stuff. So I would say selfish-wise, we are killing 2 birds. We're killing the fact that I can still participate in sports and activities, and the other part that you're helping out a physically handicapped person that doesn't want to see that he's handicapped, but he knows that he's handicapped only because of his ability to get around. And lots of people will say that if they watch me, I'm going on like a tilt. And I would say it's because of the beating that has taken over my knees over the years. And I would say that this would be a real help, especially to me. And I would really appreciate it.
I'm hoping for a wheelchair ramp in a few more years to get to the racquetball courts.
Binocular. What's that one, Quebec City? Somebody call for the question, please. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Contrary? Thank you, Your Worship. Unless you want to sit there. Oh, yeah, for my birthday. If I can put your chair down, I'll sit there, sure. Thank you. FCM committee's permission to apply for membership, and I think probably Your Worship would like to speak to that. Your Worship.
I will, actually. So basically, I am presently, what's that?
She's on, man.
I know how to work.
Jimmy, this ain't our first rodeo, you know.
I'm the queen of doing this. So basically, right now, I'm vice president of Nova Scotia Municipalities. Hopefully, if everything goes well in November, I'll be president. In the meantime, we something that's very obvious, should have been obvious years ago, is that when you step into that position as president, you haven't had any experience at the FCM table. And so we're trying to change that a little bit, where we give a little bit of funding to the vice president to be able to sit on some committees and kind of get used to that. So because it's late in the game, I was just asked if I would consider applying for a couple FCM committees, and I did that, but one of the boxes I had to check off is either you have asked council or you will ask council, and I checked that off, yes, that I would ask council. So there are 3 meetings. I think they're September, December, and March, different places in the country. And I have applied for, I haven't gotten any, but I just need permission before I can go, before I can say yes. So the piece that we were talking about, infrastructure, there's that federal infrastructure piece where we would talk about roads, and there was a number of others. So I am just looking for permission to do that. So I did send a note to Juanita at NSFM, and I said, BTW, who pays for this? So she's hoping, even though we may just say NSFM could take care of it, she's hoping that the municipal unit, which would be us, that we could cost share on those until we get that in place to see how it works. So I don't know what it would be. It would be a flight 3 times a year, maybe.
You can't afford not to sit at that table, Your Worship, right?
Somebody has to. I never think, everybody knows this of me anyway, I never think just locally. There's a whole much bigger picture than just us. And the ability to sit on NSFM gets you not just a foot in the door, but it gets your fingers on all those big pieces that affect us, whether it's roads or climate change or policing and all those things. And I don't believe for 1 second that you can just ignore how much benefit you get from sitting at those tables. And on a federal level, I'll say this, I guess I never thought the federal level was just always, okay, that'll never happen, but if there's an opportunity for me to sit at a table and express, you know, where we are and what we need, then I think I need to be there. But I need your permission as a council.
Can we have a motion to grant permission to apply for membership to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Board? Moved by Councillor Barry, second by Councillor MacLeod. Any questions, comments, concern? Questions been called? Wade?
Question.
Questions been called? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Thank you. Fire Prevention Week Appreciation Event, CAO.
Your Worship, last week, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and myself met with the leadership of the Yarmouth Volunteer Fire Department, along with Chief Farrell. We had a great conversation about a number of things that they're interested and concerned about. One of the topics that came up was the number of volunteer firefighters we currently have, and the recruitment efforts, and how we can support recruitment efforts within the town. Excuse me. One of the barriers that was expressed around recruiting volunteers is being able to have the firefighters available whenever the bell rings, and apparently a number of employers are not necessarily supportive of allowing volunteer firefighters to leave the workplace. Now, we're fortunate in the volunteers that we have that their employers, and some of them are even self-employed, are willing to leave, or able to leave the workplace to respond to the public need, whether it's a motor vehicle accident or whether it's a structure fire or what have you. The thought is that we need to work with the business community to help them become more aware of the importance of supporting their employees to be volunteer firefighters. And one way that we can do that is by celebrating those that are already there. So the idea was to hold an event during Fire Prevention Week that would recognize employers and thank them for their support they give to the volunteer firefighters we currently have, and then use that as an awareness opportunity. Work with the Chamber of Commerce to reach out to other businesses to consider even encouraging some of their employees to consider the fire department as a way of giving back to the community. So in order to host an event, and what was considered or thought or talked about was a thank you event in this very room, have the volunteer firefighters come in their uniforms, invite their employers to come in and receive a thank you certificate from council, and some finger foods and a coffee and some pictures, and use that as an opportunity to just highlight the way those businesses are supporting their employees to give back.
Your worship.
I was just going to say, yeah, I support it too. I'll actually make the motion. I think we had that conversation with them, and I really believe that one of the biggest ways to recruit is through the businesses, through the actual businesses, when they understand just how much we appreciate them having volunteer firefighters, but also when the folks that would love to step up actually have permission from the businesses. Like that's a big step, so I'll make that motion.
Moved and seconded? Good one. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? No, you're good. You just showed me something from the other day. IIHF Women's World Championship pregame or pre-camp opportunities. Your worship.
Yeah. So basically, Neil McKenzie sent this in. Opportunities. The IIHF Women's World Championships are coming. I believe they're hosted in not here, but in the province, with opportunities for us to host some of the pre-games or after games. I believe that's what it is. So Neil, through YASTA, is just looking for Town of Yarmouth support. Correct me if I'm wrong, Wade, but it's basically support. He's not asking for money, but just wants to know that we're behind this. It's a great opportunity. And actually, a few months ago, Mr. Levine mentioned it to me, that opportunity would be coming. So I would make that motion too, to support that.
Good, very nice. Question? Question been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Thank you, Your Worship. Correspondence for action. Nova Scotia Sports Hall of Fame. Did you say that was already taken care of, Your Worship?
Actually, Mike, did we take care of that? So what happens often is that we get a lot of requests for advertisement, and it just comes through the mayor's office, and we say, yes, we'll provide a quarter page or a half page, whatever it is. But this is a big deal. I think we said half a page, Mike, did we say that? We said the half a page. With that comes 4 tickets.
And the circumstances are a little different this year with the inductees, right?
Yes, so it's Jody Shelley being inducted into the Nova Scotia Hall of Fame. He's a hometown boy. It's important that we support it. It's important that, we're there. I don't know how we figure out who's going. I know I want to go. I know you said you want to go, so I don't know how we figure that out. Mike, have we already sent that in?
We agreed to do an ad. I haven't seen proof yet. So.
Okay, all right. So it was like $600 for a half a page, which is not.
Do we need a motion for that, just in case?
Yes.
Yep.
Your Worship's going to make the motion, seconded by Councillor Barry. Any other comments or questions? Questions been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary, 10A, African Nova Scotia support.
Okay, so can I borrow this, Don?
It's right here.
So basically, Placemaking 4G, and Natalie is very aware of what they do. They do a lot of work with just in the workplace, and they're based out of Halifax. So they are just looking for, they just want to be able to say that we support this. They're working on a federal government grant application through Youth Employment and Skills Strategy, and it's based on African Nova Scotia Youth Employment Lab, and to move that type of thing forward. So basically, it's African Nova Scotian Youth Employment, and they're just looking for support. I mean, I know what they do. I know who they are. So
We have
I'm good for it.
a motion for
Jeff's-
letter of CAO. You have a comment on that?
I was just going to encourage your support for that. I know that we have the capacity to be a partner there, and that's what they're asking, so I 100% encourage your support for that.
Moved by Councillor Barry, seconded by, I'd like to see Councillor Barry second that, yeah. Well, you're too far away, he's too far away, right? Question's been called, all those in favor? Aye, contrary. Motion what do you do?
Sorry, that was your birthday words.
Yeah, she does a lot of talking when she's not in the chair, you're right. You are right about that. Motion to go in camera, please.
I'll second that.
Second. Question. All those in favor?